Hello everyone, so welcome again in the next part of this lecture series for Salesforce. And in this part we'll be covering the other important topics which are more relevant to developer, and the earlier was more relevant to admins. So in this part we will be learning about all of these topics. Let me just go to the second slide. Here is the content. So basically we will go through what is Apex trigger, what is Visual Force, what is Apex, what is static resource, SOQL, SOSL, all these topics, how to deploy, everything we'll cover in this lecture. Okay, so hold on and we'll get into it. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so let me just go to the next slide. So here we have visual flows. Okay, so earlier we have seen that there is this workflow rules for automating, there is this process builder for automating, but there is another uh, feature as well, which can be used or leveraged to create a bit more complex workflow. Okay, so for this there is visual flow. Okay, apart from this, visual flow also provides guided screens. I will talk about that. But visual flow actually provides this feature where it's you can now you'll ask, why do we need process builder and visual flow? So the main difference is that process builder, you can say visual flow lies somewhere in between workflow and this process builder, and it is kind of a switch case statement. If you see, process builder is kind of a linear, where it's like a if else statement, and in visual flow it's you can create logics which are analogous to a switch case statement. Okay, you can create pretty complex flows with this tool as well. Okay, and apart from this, visual flows actually also provides, this flow builder also provides something called guided screen. Now what is guided screen? Let's say that you want to show a different kind of screen based on the user input. Let's say if the user searches for enters their contact ID, and if the user doesn't exist in the Salesforce system. Okay, in that case it should the screen should show the page where the user can create a new contact. Okay, so basically, and if the user is an existing user, it will get another look and feel. For this there are guided screens which could be leveraged. Okay, so this is visual flow. Now let's go to Apex trigger. Okay, this is the second topic. Okay, so what is Apex trigger? Okay, so I will explain this code and you will get an idea of what that Apex trigger can do. Okay, so basically Apex trigger, this is the, you can say, the skeleton of what kind of a Apex trigger looks like. There is a trigger on object name and trigger events. This is, but I will explain. See, what is Apex trigger? Apex trigger is like whenever let's say a new contact is updated, if you have provided such a logic over here, it will trigger something, trigger an action. Okay, as soon as that happens. Okay, for this code we'll see what it does. So this trigger is written on contact object. Okay, and it what it does, after a record is inserted in a contact object, this trigger will check if it is see if it's written after insert, after delete. So the logic for is insert is over here and the logic is not written for is delete, so we leave that. But if the data, if a record is inserted in contact object, what will actually happen is the record will get an email. So how does that happen? So there is this email manager class. If you see, this email manager class has a method called send mail. If you want to have a look in for in of this Apex class, it's there in Trailhead. Okay, so it's there inside Trailhead and you can have a look over there. But for now I'll just refer this as this is a Apex class called email manager, and this send mail is the method within that class. Okay, so just like Java, you call this class and this method within that class, and what this method does, it triggers an email. Okay, and what will the email have? It will have this record count, and with this record count is the size. Okay, this size will get returned and it will of the contacts which are there, and it will get triggered. Okay, so basically as soon as a contact record is created inside a contact, a email will be triggered and the subsequent user will get an email. So basically this is what a trigger does. It actually used to trigger an action based on an event or a logic which you have written in Apex. Okay, so this is what a trigger is. Now Apex is actually the language of Salesforce. Okay, so you can imagine it like this. This is the backend language. Just like if you are using Mount Stack, you will use for the front end React, from the backend let's say Node.js, for the database you will be using something, okay, MongoDB or something. But in here the backend is Apex. Okay, so you get an idea. So here is a short example of Apex. So what it does, so you can run this thing, you can open the developer console, you can go to this execute anonymous window, and over there you can just paste this and run, and it will insert an account inside your uh, account object. Okay, so Apex is analogous to this Java. So basically it has classes, methods, inheritance. Most of the Java, it is a Java like programming language which actually serves as the middle, which is the backend. Okay, to talk with the database, and the database here is objects. So basically you will see that Apex and SOQL or SOSL, these are all interlinked, and then you call those controllers written in Apex using Visual Force or LWC, whatever you are using. Okay, so here Visual Force or LWC is the front end. Just like HTML you use in a web development, here you have Visual Force. Okay, but this is actually a new, something new has come up. I will show that in the later slides. But here Visual Force is the front end. Okay, it's the markup language. Okay, it is a markup language which is created in such a way that will talk to the Apex. So it will say, it is like the view and the Apex is like the controller. Okay, so you can connect this view and the controller using this standard controller equal to contact. You can see over here standard controller equal to contact. So using this binding you can just and you can see that whatever you put you can just fetch, and you can just means this is the view. Okay, so basically this is the view, the markup, the HTML, and the middle one is the, or the backend is the Apex, and there is a database. So you get an idea. Okay, so now static resources. Okay, so you often will need, while developing applications, you will obviously need some libraries like JavaScript, jQuery or Bootstrap, whatever third party libraries which you are using to style your web pages, you can import it over here. Okay, so this is the place. So how you can get this? You just go and search in the quick find box, the search box, and you type static resources. You will get this in the menu, and you can just click over there upload the jQuery file or the bootstrap file, and you will get a link. Okay, so you get an you will get the path. Okay, so you can just upload here. Okay, and then use that library inside Salesforce. So I don't know why this image gone. Okay, uh, lightning components or the aura component. So what is lightning component? So, and you will find something called lightning web component, which I will come later. Okay, so what is lightning components? Lightning component is uh, it's actually, see, now if you have, if you are familiar with component based architecture, you will know that earlier it was just static pages, then it was a bit dynamic pages with Ajax, jQuery, these things. But then came these frameworks like React.js. Okay, what this does is this gives a component based architecture where a single page is divided into components, and so any part of the, and there is something called the virtual DOM in React.js, and similarly here we have the shadow DOM. Okay, so basically you can you can basically this actually breaks the code into modular modules, and these components actually renders, let's say there is a page, and you can just render a particular component of that page instead of refreshing the entire page. So basically this gives a bit of more this thing, this bit of more like a single page application. Okay, you don't need to have multiple page reloads. So that's what lightning component does. But when Salesforce developed this lightning component, they had this dependency on this framework called aura components. Okay, so lightning components has a bit of complexity, and it is heavily dependent on aura component. Okay, so Salesforce and it was much less closer to the web, so there are some cons related to this lightning component. So Salesforce came up with this my internet got lost, just a minute. Sorry about that, it was actually my internet connection got lost maybe. So that's why the images were not rendering. So basically let's come to the point. So basically lightning components was earlier developed by Salesforce to bring that component architecture which like React.js or some frameworks like that. So that's the modern web, and this single page application is getting more and more familiar. So basically they brought this into this Salesforce ecosystem. But then what happened is this aura component, aura framework, which this lightning components depended on, is has some limiting factors. Okay, so then they came up with this lightning web component, which is much more easier and much more close to the web stack. Okay, it's like it's more of a, you will get a more of a familiarity between this React.js and this lightning web components, because this is actually more to the web standards. They meet the web standard a bit more, and is less means dependent on this aura and all. Okay, so basically this is much easier to learn also. Okay, I have seen this, so this is actually a little easier to learn than and it has more pros in this thing, that it has this more familiarity, more it's more aligned to this web standards. Okay, so this is what lightning web component is. And if you see it also has a markup. If you see, this is the markup. So this is the lightning markup. So it's just like, if you use React, you will know that there is JSX, and it's somewhat like that over here. Or it's like you can just compare it with HTML, but it's somewhat like a markup language. Okay, and there is JavaScript. So basically in JavaScript you have this you call this control, it's like a control. Okay, so basically, and you what is happening is, you see this change handler, on change, this change handler is called, and this method is getting executed over here. And you see greeting equal to world. So basically if you are using React, you will know that this greeting is actually kind of a state. Okay, so this variables kind of work like state. This is the handler, event handler, and this is they are using this event dot target dot value. So I got a bit of more familiarity or a similar thing between this lightning web component and this React.js. So they are quite similar in thing. Okay, so this is like JSX, this is like so whatever, I don't want to go deep into that, but uh, you get an idea. Okay, so this actually brings more of a JavaScript kind of thing inside this development environment. Okay, so basically you get more like you can have web developers work on these lightning components. Okay, because this is more aligned to this web standards, and it's just like writing with JavaScript. So there is a module in Trailhead which is specially given for JavaScript. Okay, so you can go through that also. So basically it's more like aligned with JavaScript. So now let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there is a difference between this lightning component and the lightning web component. I have added this slide, you can go through that. You can, as you can see in the last thing. Okay, this lightning component depends on this Aura framework, while this lightning web component is more like more aligned to the web. Okay, web browsers, or okay, so ECMAScript, those things. So basically you will have more fun with this lightning web components. Okay, so there is lightning design system. Now Salesforce came up with this something more similar to this bootstrap. If you are a web developer, you will know that there is this bootstrap. You can use all the components like the breadcrumbs, like buttons, cards. So a similar thing is here also. You will get a lightning design system, and the things are styled to meet the standard of this Salesforce ecosystem. So whatever you develop with this lightning design system, the applications will look and sync with this UI look and feel of this Salesforce. Okay, so you will just get that feel of it, you are using a Salesforce application. So for this there is this lightning design system. You can go to their URL and learn more, or check out the components which there are. You can see there are buttons, cards, just like if you are using bootstrap, it's similar to that only. Okay, there is SOQL. So now we come back to this queries and this Apex thing. Okay, so basically if you see this, you can query and leverage the data from the objects and use them in your Apex. Okay, so for that you have this SOQL. So basically it's just like SQL, but what's the difference is, instead of writing table names, you write this objects names like account, contact, these things, and it's just similar to that only. And so basically in this code you can see that we are getting the name, phone number from account object, where the name equal to SFDC computing, and the number of employees greater than 25, and you are just outputting the size of the thing you have got, of the number of records you have fetched. So basically this is SOQL, and you can leverage this inside your Apex code. Okay, or you can run this anonymously as well. Okay, now SOSL is another query language which is provided by to more say correctly, it's a search language which is provided by Salesforce again. Now you will say that why on earth do we need another query language when we have one? So there are some benefits of using this SOSL. I will come to that shortly, because we have this difference slide over there in the upcoming slides. Okay, but what it does is you can query multiple objects at the same time. You can actually, I will to make you understand, actually you can search the entire Salesforce multiple objects at one time, and see and find a search for a value, which you can't do inside this SOQL. Okay, because you will need joins, etc., but that's not the case. So basically SOQL allows only single object to be searched. Okay, so basically you are searching the account object, the contact object, so it's like that. So it's a single search where you are searching inside a single object. Okay, for the SOQL is limited to that, but inside SOSL you are searching multiple objects at a same time. Okay, so this is beneficial for some cases. In some cases you will require this. So what is how do we write SOSL? You see, find SFDC in all fields, returning account and this. So basically it will search for anywhere, it will search everywhere, anywhere and everywhere it will search, find wherever there is SFDC, it will, and it will there is some more things, it will not search exact like SOQL, it will search the exact thing, it will also return like SFDC something, it will return that also. Okay, so there are some more benefits, so you go through this SOQL and SOSL thing and you will get an idea. There is a difference, and why we require both SOQL and SOSL. So I have provided this slide over here and you can go through them. Okay, now we have Workbench. So what is Workbench? Now see, the Workbench is actually another tool which is outside Salesforce, but you can use that to uh, multiple of functionalities it also provides. Just like, means like you can write queries, SOQL, SOSL, everything. And if you are not familiar with writing queries, you can, there is like this like form like fields where you can just click, point and click tools, and you can get the work done. So it's kind of a tool which is provided to help you. Okay, so there is you can write queries, you can not only queries, you can call Apex, you can create you can call using post, get, you can call this Apex classes also. Okay, basically you can do multiple things. It's like a tool to assist you in your task. Okay, it's not just query, you can use it for query, you can also use it for rest call, soap call, anything, you get an idea. Okay, so there is DML. Okay, what is DML? You earlier also I have showed you this Apex thing and you have seen, but you haven't noticed. This is slide, you will get a particular look at what is a DML. So basically when you are writing Apex, you will see often that insert account. Okay, update account, this kind of thing, insert, update, merge, delete, restore, these things are provide this whatever you write to manipulate the data. Okay, so that's called actually DML. It's just a name, but it's just this thing. Okay, so basically it's data manipulation language, and it use anything you do inside your Apex is which is like insert, update, whatever, that's actually DML. Okay, now let's go to Apex test classes. Now any code which is written in a sandbox has to pass test classes before they land up in production. Okay, so basically test classes are written to see that all the test coverage. Okay, see, you see here 100%, this means the all the test cases have been passed. Okay, so you have to write test classes. So in this example I have made it short by removing some of the methods. I have kept only one method. If you want the entire code, you can go to Trailhead and you can get that. Okay, so basically this is the Apex test class where this is the temperature converter, and here is a function, and this function is actually returning this thing. Okay, so basically it's a Celsius and Fahrenheit converter kind of. Okay, and here is the test class. So any test class, it's written in this is test, this is abbreviated as is test, and then the test class is written, the test method also is written in, with an earlier abbreviation. Okay, it begins with this is test thing, and then you see you are here what this is checking, test worm temperature. So basically they are passing a temperature and it should equal this. Okay, so assert equals is it will return true, false, or okay, it is actually assert equals this system.assert equals is used to check that whether it is passing the test classes. Okay, so basically it is actually you are passing this 70 degree and you are seeing that is this test class passing. Okay, test worm temperature. So basically this is what test class does. This actually is used to test an apex class which you have written, and you can write multiple methods. It's just not just one method. You can write multiple methods to test various scenarios. You can have a method test cool temperature also. Okay, so like that you can have multiple test methods to test that particular class in every scenario, and you get a 100% test code cover means code coverage, and then you land that code into production. Okay, so this is test class. Approval processes. So you can create approval processes inside Salesforce. So let's say that you are creating a process where if let's say a student wants to get approval for something. Okay, so basically let's say the student want to get approval for a library book. So basically it should go to the librarian. If the librarian approves, then it will go to the means there is the student will get an email that the book can be issued now. Okay, so basically this kind of approval processes where there will be a middleman who will be approving, then there will be another man who will be approving, and then you can get and if it's rejected, then an email will be triggered that the approval has been rejected. Okay, or so this kind of workflows can be created with something called approval processes inside Salesforce. Okay, so now let's go to reports. So reports is always important. Whenever you are working with businesses, they will need reports to understand how their business is performing. Okay, so for this reason Salesforce also has out of the box reports over here. And so basically here report is a list of records which are filtered based on the filter criteria which you have provided, and then it outputs the results in this tabular format. Okay, so basically reports is after you apply a filter, whatever records you get based on that filter, that's the report you are wanting. Okay, now dashboards. Now you might want to visualize that report. Here comes dashboard. Okay, what dashboard does is you drag that pie chart inside here, and then you drag the report you have created earlier. So earlier you have created a report, you drag that report and place it over that pie chart, and you will get this visualization of that report. Okay, so basically you get a visualization of reports. You can have multiple reports getting visualized, and you can create your dashboard and show it to business. Okay, for that you have dashboards. Data loader and data import wizard. Okay, oftentimes you will require to import data from outside, from CSV files. For this there is data import wizard which comes out of the box. You can search for that and in the quick find box, and you can import data with just one click inside your objects. Okay, like contacts, accounts, whatever. But when it has a limitation, you can import only up to 50,000 records. If you have more than that, up to 5,000 records can be imported with something called the data loader, which is a client application which is present in App Exchange. But if you have some more records, let's say it's more than 5 million, and then you have to contact the support, Salesforce support, and they will help you getting that inside your Salesforce. Okay, now Salesforce data security. So basically Salesforce has object level security, field level security, and record level security. So what Salesforce data security does is you can configure as to who can view what. Okay, that's what it means. So the object level security means who can view which objects, who can have permissions to delete, create, view, edit these objects. Who can field level security, who can view, edit or delete that particular field. Record level security means who can so what is a field, what is an object, and what is a record, I have discussed earlier in our earlier video, but here you will have an idea. So here I am just saying it's just who can have the permission to do what. That's is data security in Salesforce. Okay, So basically everything can be customized to read only. Someone can have the permission to edit, someone can have the permission to delete as well. So this is Salesforce data security. Apex callout. So what is Apex callout? So basically, let's say there is third party applications like something deployed in Heroku, and you want to fetch data from there, or you want to post data to Heroku or some other, not only limited to Heroku, you saw, let's say Google Cloud or anywhere. So basically for that reason you have this Apex callout. So you can have this get, post, delete, anything, and you can, I will explain this code. See, what happens is HTTP, this is the object, this is the creating the object, and then this means they are, what they are doing is they are calling this endpoint, this sent endpoint. They are, first of all they are setting the endpoint that we will be hitting this URL, okay, and what kind of hit it will be? It will be get, not post. For here it's get, okay. Then we are sending the request, and we are, whatever response we are getting, we are storing that over here. So it's something similar, like if you are a JavaScript developer, you will know it's something like fetch. You are using fetch or Axios inside this JavaScript, is something like that. So basically whatever response you are getting, you are storing it over here, and then if it's a successful response, if it's 200, that means it's success. So you are mapping that and keeping it inside a map object. So just like Java, where you have hash maps, here you have map object where you are storing that in a key value pair, and then you are, what you are doing is you can go loop, and you are just looping through that map. You have just got this over here. Sorry, this one is over here. They have not looked over here, but whatever, since this, they have stored something over here, and then they have fetched this animal. So basically they are this thing only, means they are getting this data, they are storing it in the map object. They are also storing the animal names in the list, okay. And once the data is stored in this animal list, then it is actually, so basically you see, this is like this. This is the result map object where it's stored in the key value pair, and then from this results they are getting the value where the key is animal, okay. So basically the for the animal key, they are getting the entire values, and it's stored inside this list called animals, and then it's looping through that list to get the each animals, and it's getting outputted, okay. So system.debug is basically like system.out.print, and it's outputting that, okay. So you can check logs and you will get the name of animals. So basically this is what it is. So basically what Apex callout does, it calls to anything third party, okay. So to get data, post data, this kind of thing. Integration. Now we have come to integration. So what is integration? So basically Salesforce actually works with a multiple applications, okay. So there you can integrate it in several ways. I have given some over here. So let's say you have, there is Salesforce connects with some of its own applications like Heroku, Marketing Cloud, using connectors. So there are default connectors, which is a point and click tool, and you just click on that and you get connected to this application, okay. So basically you share some credentials and it's connected. So basically for Heroku, connect objects and post the databases, so you can transfer records back and forth between this, okay. So for Salesforce Marketing Cloud, there is Marketing Cloud connector, which you can connect the Salesforce Sales Cloud with this, okay. So these are the connector thing. Other than this, Apex callout is, yes, always there. It's yeah, I have shown you earlier that Apex callouts can be used to connect to third party. There is web to lead. Web to lead is used to get data. I have shown it in earlier video. Web to lead is actually you there you expose a form inside a third party website. You get the data. It will automatically flow into your SFDC. APIs, REST API, SOAP API, these things are there. You can always use these things, APIs, to integrate, okay. there are SDKs also, multiple SDKs are there which are available, and also these things are used to integrate with third party applications. Now we have come to sharing rules. Okay, so what is sharing rule? So basically sharing rule and public group. So basically, see, you have, let's say you have some objects which you want to share with a group of people, and you want to hide from the rest of people. The rest of people don't want to, don't you don't want them to have access to that. So here, for this reason, you have public group, where you group a particular number of users and create that public group, and after you have created that group, you can you can create a sharing rule where you can share that records or that object, whatever means you want to share with that group. So there will be an option over here, you see, you can see, while creating a sharing rule, you can select the group you have created earlier, and then in that means group, you can share the permissions and whatever you want to share. Okay, so this sharing rule is this. Okay, change set. Now we have come to deployment. Okay, so this from this change set slides, it's actually deployment, how an application goes from UAT to staging to production, how it's deployed. Okay, so this is the thing. So basically, what is change set? So anything from sandbox to production is done through deployments using change set. Now change set is something, let's say you have created an object and you want it to be deployed to production. Now how will you do? So you can't do it directly. What you do is you create a change set which will automatically create the metadata for the objects which you have created. So basically it will have a metadata, and now once you have that metadata, you will use that to deploy. So I will show you that in the next slide. Okay, so there are these steps to how to deploy it to production. Okay, so from staging, you have this, you will create an outbound change set. You can search that in the quick find box. You will first create a change set. You will add all the details of what are the things you want to move to production. You will save that change set, and then what you will do is you will go to production and you will create a connection with the staging first. Okay, so basically you will authorize the staging, you will connect through the deployment connection, you will connect the staging environment, and once the connection is done, then you will upload the change set you have created in the staging, and it will automatically go to the production environment. Okay, then if the production approves, and then it will go over there. Okay, so basically it's not directly from staging to production, it's from staging. You will create change set, you will upload those change set, and then after receiving approval, it's in production. Okay, so basically this is what we have covered. So let's have a quick recap. This was a very long one, the second masterclass. Okay, so and it also covers most of the important topics. Okay, so basically here we have discussed visual flow, we have discussed Apex triggers, we have discussed Apex, visual force, static resources, lightning components, lightning web components, how are they different, lightning design system, SOQL, SOSL, SOQL versus SOSL, how are they different, and what's the reason both are there. Okay, workbench, DML, Apex test classes, approval processes, reports, dashboards. We have also discussed how reports and dashboards are used together. Okay, data loader and import wizard, which are used when, Salesforce data security, Apex callouts, integration where you connect to third party applications, sharing rules, public groups, sandbox to production, how they are deployed from sandbox to production. Okay, so basically I think I skipped this slide. So basically in sandbox, basically you after this actually happens like this, that after something you said there this sometimes you will see that there are refreshes of sandbox. Okay, so what happens is you deploy something to production. This is a cycle that goes on. then you refresh the sandbox, which again syncs with the production. Again you make the changes, you deploy, and this goes on. Okay, so this is sandbox to production. Sandbox is the testing environment and the production is the live environment. Okay, then we have discussed change set, deployment, how we could go use change set to deploy into production. To give it as a bonus, there are some tools which have come up for deployment as well, which are CI/CD tools like Flowsum, Copado. These things are coming up newly for this deployment. Okay, so that's all from my end. Hope you enjoyed this session. If you like, I will request you to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. Thank you all.